All right, so let's say it goes 9 jack. All right, and now this person plays another heart to get back to their partner, because their partner should have the ace, right? If the king held the lead at trick 1. East now wins the ace and plays another club back. Can 4 spades be made? No. It's not always easy to see as a defender, but you can, it is often possible for a defense to break up an end play or break up a squeeze earlier in the hand if you are kind of looking ahead. If you're sitting over here and you're looking at this dummy, you're thinking, well, if Declare has a second heart, my ace of hearts isn't going away. So there's no urgency to cash it right away. At least you don't think there's any urgency. That's what you have to try and assess as a defender. Like, well, could this trick go away? Because if you come to the conclusion that your heart winner can't go away, then you should probably be switching to something else. And that something else most of the time is going to be dummy's weakest suit. Of all 4 suits, and of course, I mean, now you could make a safe exit like a trump. That's just a passive lead as a defender, right? Like, well, I don't want to give anything away, I'll just leave a trump. But I don't think this calls for defending passively. So you have to go back and say, okay, well, you know, I'm looking at the opponents have voluntarily bid a game. It's not like we pushed them there. I have the ace and king of hearts and the king of diamonds. Maybe that doesn't leave a whole lot of room for my partner to have stuff. But is there room for partner to have something? Yeah, there's room for partner to have a little something. And you're like, okay, well, what might that something be? What if it's the queen of diamonds? Well, if partner has the queen of diamonds and you have the king of diamonds and dummy has ace jack, with split honors, if Declare has more than a singleton diamond, you will get a diamond trick. So you can look at that and say, well, okay, if we have a diamond coming, which you don't on this hand, but if we have a diamond coming, it's not going away. Right? What about clubs? What if partner has king of clubs? You know, could I make partner's life easier by leading clubs through Declare? So if you come to that conclusion, and it could be a no-cost proposition, right? What if Declare has, you know, what if partner has queen and Declare has ace-king small? Leading a club is probably a good thing to do. You may never get partner's queen set up. You don't know if it'll be a winner, but it didn't hurt to try, right? Didn't cost anything.
Well, it hurts to try if your partner has led from a doubleton.
Oh, you mean if you think that partner is, if you think that partner is getting a heart ruff?
Yeah. So
okay, that's a good consideration.
You return your partner's suit, and you don't break a new suit. You're violating 2 rules. You should lead back to your partner as a golden rule. And
well, yes and no. So that this is a good question. By the way, this actually leads me to, and I know we're drifting a little bit here to the defensive side, but these are actually really good points that are worth talking about. Now, I didn't tell you, I told you that the opening lead was a heart. I didn't tell you which heart.
Right.
All right. People ask me all the time, and this is a very good example of why you don't lead top of nothing against suits unless you are actually short. I would never, ever lead the 9 of hearts. Ever. I might against no trump. I might against 3-no. That would be a passive lead. I will not lead this against suits. Why? Because if you lead a 9, a big spot card, partner is going to play you for a doubleton and try and give you a ruff that you're never getting. If I'm leading hearts, I lead the 3. I lead small from the 3 or 4 card holding.
But doesn't that say I have an honor, partner?
No.
Oh.
It doesn't in my universe.
oh,
Yeah.
We need some talk about leads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is a count situation. The 3 just suggests length, and length may only be 3 cards. Leading a big spot card against suit should be reserved for your leading from shortness.
What about middle up down? Is that just when your partners bid the suit?
That will work, but then you've got to be very careful. If you want to lead the 8, and now that's an agreement. What Joanne's talking about is called mud. This middle up down. Some people will do that from a 3-card holding, and so if you want to lead the 8 so that you convey, so that it looks like you don't have an honor in the suit, and there is something to be said for that. That will work, but you had better follow with the 9, so the partner knows it's not a doubleton, and partner had better be paying attention to those spot cards.
I thought mud only applied in the suit that your partner bid.
That's the question.
Well, this is a you've got to have some defensive agreements for hands where your side doesn't bid. Here we had the opponents freely bid to 4 spades, and you weren't involved in the auction. So neither of you really has any idea about your partner's distribution, right? You don't have any idea about how many cards. About all you know is they're in a big spade fit, and neither of you have a lot of spades. But you don't know much more than that, right?
So how do you resolve the conflict of leading a 2 or 3 implies a high honor versus leading a 2 or 3 to indicate that you don't have a doubleton? How do you?
Isn't that a whole class?
It probably is.
Maybe. Okay, sorry.
That we may be getting into much more complicated territory.
Okay.
Now here there's no ambiguity, is there? Because the queen and jack are in dummy, and partner has ace king. They know you don't have an honor in the suit. Now the cards may not always lie that conveniently, but I think if you will. I think it works out better to lead small from most 3-card holdings. Put it that way.
Okay.
Well, in that particular thing, the 9 and the 8 are so close together, it's hard. If you led the 8, the first time around, you may think it's a doubleton also.
Right, and in that case, you need a second round of the suit.
Well, yeah, if you get to
In that case, yeah, you need a second round of the suit to figure out. It's not a doubleton. If you lead the 3, clearly, if you lead the 3, it can't be a singleton, right? If partner has 4 and there are 3 in the dummy, if it's a singleton, that means declare has a whole string of hearts, and I find it hard to believe that declare would have a whole bunch of hearts, and we wouldn't,
Hear about
that we wouldn't have heard about during the bidding. If they were that distributional, that they had a bunch of length in both majors, the opponents might be looking for something more than the game too. So there are deductions like that you can make, but yeah, why don't we table any more detailed discussion of that for stuff on leads. So as far as the stripping the hand out and the end play, did all that make sense? Because I think it's actually it's easier when you see it than it sounds when you describe it. And I think about the only thing that might trip someone up on a hand like that is that because you are so eager to get trumps drawn and make sure that nothing gets roughed, if you draw 2 rounds of trumps and you don't start getting your diamonds roughed before you have trumps drawn, on this particular hand, your only sure entry to the dummy was in the trump suit. And so that's why you needed to do it that way. Because if you drew trumps, then you could go to the ace of diamonds and rough a diamond, but then you had to get back to the dummy to rough another diamond, and the only way to do that was with trumps, and we don't want you to exhaust all of dummy's trumps because you need to set up the possible rough and slough scenario, right? So, let's see here. All right. Let's get started on squeezes. Is it okay to erase this?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who wanted to jot down that in-play definition hopefully got it. And we'll get started on our discussion of squeezes, at least talking about our terms, and then get into a couple of hands. So a squeeze is a forced discard by a defender that promotes one of your losers into a winner. And the thing to understand about a squeeze, and it has probably happened to you, whether or not you realized it was happening, if you did realize it was happening, it was probably extremely uncomfortable. And even in the end, you may have thought that you made a defensive error. The thing is, when a squeeze is properly executed, the defense has not made an error. They have been forced into this discard. It's not a mistake. This is a technical element of the game that you can execute. And so there are 4 things, and these are defined in your handout, so I will put the full text up here. But there are 4 things that you need for a squeeze to happen. And one of the reasons that I developed this handout is so that there's a book that's been around for decades. The author is Clyde Love. And I don't know if you may have seen it somewhere. I'm sure Paul's probably got it in the library here. It was, for many, it's considered like the kind of the authoritative text on squeezes. And so that the information in it is very good. I don't know if Clyde Love was a mathematician or a scientist or what. Let's just say that writing was not his top skill.
Nicely put.
And so, I have read bits and pieces of the book. I have not read it cover to cover. It's one of those things that I started to read it and I looked at parts of it, and I do have the book at home because I felt like it was an obligatory part of my bridge collection. But I think I would rather go chew on some gravel out in the parking lot right now than read that book cover to cover again. You're welcome to pick it up, look at it. Like I said, I bet Paul has it here, or I have it if you do want to look at it. But it really is not very user friendly. And it's like, it's like reading a math textbook, right? I mean, you get so hung up, that's why, it's like we need our math teacher to give us a lecture and explain this stuff and illustrate it, because if you try and learn it straight out of a textbook, it's just, there's too many T's and X's and parentheses and all this, that's how it feels when you read this, right? And you're trying to keep that, because he's got, variables assigned, and it just gets, you can't keep track of everything. So I think the easiest thing to do is, kind of reduce it to these 4 key things that you need, and then we will show you each of these items in a hand diagram. So to execute a squeeze, you need a squeeze card. What is the squeeze? What is the squeeze card? It is a card that is not involved in the squeeze itself. In other words, it is a card in what we often refer to as a free suit. And a free suit, and remember that these squeezes can take place whether you're playing a suit contract or a no trump. If you are executing a squeeze in a suit contract, a lot of times it's your trumps coming down to one trump in particular that serves as your squeeze card. Because when you get trumps drawn early, what if you have a whole bunch of those things? What if your suit is a 6 or 7 card suit? All right, so you play 1 or 2 rounds to take away trumps from the opponents. But then if you want, you can, if it's not a hand where you need to rough things, it's not a cross rough or something like that, you can actually play a whole bunch of that suit and put your opponents under a lot of pressure for discards, right? Because they run out of trumps pretty quickly, but you're going to play 3 or 4 more rounds of them and make their lives miserable. that may not be real intuitive to you when you're in a suit contract, because a lot of times you think, well, I got my trumps drawn so that my opponents can't ruff anything. Why would I play any more trumps? Well, because you're executing a squeeze. And then of course in no trump, and of course essentially what you've done is you've almost reduced the hand to as if you're playing a no trump when you do that anyhow, right? Or if you're playing a no trump, your free suit where your squeeze card comes from tends to be like one of your long suits where you're running some winners. So when we talk about a free suit, that's what we mean. So the squeeze card is the card that is ultimately going to put one or both defenders under intense pressure and force them into a discard that they don't want to make.